Hello, Andrew Collishaw, homeopath and naturopath, and a very warm welcome to this week's Body Talk newsletter. Over the last 12 months, I've had two people in my life who've actually suffered a heart attack. Now, both have survived, which is great, but it has been a poignant reminder of just how common cardiovascular disease is today. For example, in 2011, there were 45,600 deaths in Australia due to cardiovascular disease. Now, this is an enormous number of people. And of course, that's not to mention all the people affected from those people dying. And in this day and age, we have a lot of knowledge, especially nutritional knowledge, as a very, very significant, important part of dealing with cardiovascular disease and preventing it. I'm going to talk about some of the common factors that we know that contribute to cardiovascular disease, but more importantly, I want to just talk to you about the mental emotional stress component, because as I'm sure you know, the way I see stress is that it's a major factor in contributing to illness and disease, including cardiovascular disease. Now, one of the effects of stress is the result of the production of cortisol, which comes from the adrenal glands, which sit on top of the kidneys. And in small amounts, cortisol is an essential part of our defense mechanism against stress. Now, the problem is when we have enduring stress, chronic stress, then the levels of cortisol increase, and that has a whole range of subsequent negative effects. It can lower your immune system, for example. It can affect the blood sugar levels and destabilise the delicate balance of sugars in the blood. There are many negative effects of high sustained levels of cortisol which occur during stressful, prolonged periods. And that's just one of the reasons why it's really important to be always constantly looking for ways of dealing with stress. Now, when I'm treating someone with some sort of cardiovascular disease, perhaps they've had a heart attack in the past, or perhaps they're trying to prevent heart problems because of a family history, high blood pressure, that's a very common ailment, of course. So when I'm treating these sorts of conditions in clinic, one of the really important factors is the stress component. And I would say probably 99, if not 100% of people, stress is an important factor that simply has to be addressed. Now, of course, I do that through medicines, herbal medicines, homeopathic medicines, naturopathic lifestyle changes, these sorts of things. This is how we approach that. So in terms of you looking after your cardiovascular system, of course you need to be doing all the things that we know you need to be doing. Exercise, nutrition. I mean, they're givens, aren't they? But I've listed these here on the newsletter just so you can refresh your memory, so you know the sorts of things you need to be doing. And if you're not, then, tweaking things so that perhaps you are spending a little bit more time eating more correctly, making that bit extra effort to go and do some exercise, for example. But the big factor I want you to focus on is how you're dealing with stress and how that's going to have an effect on your whole cardiovascular system. Now, in terms of nutrition, I've got some examples of some research that's been done recently. For example, turmeric can provide a really wonderful way there's so much new research these days showing the beneficial effects of certain nutrients at certain dosages, and it can become a little bit confusing in terms of knowing what's going to help you if you're looking at trying to improve your eating habits, or if you're thinking about supplements, for example. What do you take? What's going to be the best for you? I guess everybody knows about fish oils these days, which is fantastic, but what type of fish oil? What does it need to be combined with? How does it need to be manufactured? Can you achieve a similar or the same sort of effect by eating just the natural foods, and not so much the fish oil in that case, but looking at nutrients in general? Can you get excellent effects for your cardiovascular system through having excellent quality foods regularly? So what do we do with this research? And I think the important thing is that it can highlight areas that we can focus on. So for example, we know about the fish oil, so having the fish that contain the EPA, DHA oils, having turmeric, these sorts of foods we can incorporate more into our diet. For example, Brazil nuts have good levels of selenium, and selenium as an antioxidant can have a protective effect on the heart and the heart tissue. So in our diet, over a period of a month or so, Now, it's important to understand what I'm saying here about nutrition and about exercise. These things are important, of course they are. And I guess over the last 10 years or so, we've seen an increase in the general baseline level of health of the cardiovascular system. But having said that, look at the statistics. So many people die from cardiovascular disease. It is still a problem. There is still something missing in what we're doing, in the way that we're looking after ourselves. Now, I think it's twofold. One is that there are always improvements that we can make with our nutrition, with our exercise regime. But the other thing that I think is possibly missing is addressing the emotional side of things. So, for example, the type A personality. I mean, how many of those traits do you have? Even if you're not a type A personality, perhaps you have some of those anxieties as well. Now, that has and can have health consequences. And in terms of treating cardiovascular disease and preventing, we've got to be looking at, for example, the way your body and the way you deal with anxiety. It's one of those insidious things that can just gnaw away at us, and over time it can be contributing, if not causing, illness and disease. So refresh your mind about the things we need to be doing and all the things that we know are good for our cardiovascular system: exercise, nutrition, weight loss, all those sorts of things. We know that. Just be up to date with that and look at your diet, but also look at what's happening mentally and emotionally as part of the package of looking after your cardiovascular system. It's such a common disease, and there are so many ways that we can look after that ourselves, and of course professionally, as a health professional, that's something that we see a lot of in the clinic, and there are many, many ways therapeutically that we can address that in terms of treatment and prevention. So lots of very interesting information, and I hope this motivates you to be thinking a little bit more about looking after your cardiovascular system. All right, I'll look forward to speaking with you soon. Bye for now.